Hello and welcome to Odds on Premier League Matchday 25. After 2 weeks with FA Cup, we are back to analyze all the games with Tom Rennie. Are they still fighting in Merseyside? Tom Rennie?
Probably. Why not? The last ever Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. It had to end in multiple red cards and a punch-up. That's what we wanted, and that's what we got.
Love it. Exactly, I love it. Vinnie Jones style. Well, let's talk about Man City crisis, for instance, or Tottenham crisis. Guys, with you, of course, leave your comments, press the like, subscribe. Let's go on now with the show. Well, and perhaps we can also say that Chelsea is in crisis. First game is Brighton-Chelsea. We just saw this game in the FA Cup, and Brighton won, coming back after the harsh defeat they suffered against Nottingham Forest, 7-0, remember? But again, they just beat Chelsea in the FA Cup. It looks like Chelsea's season, Tom, is falling apart after a decent start, no FA Cup. And now the goal is to finish in the Champions League spots. Is no wins in the last 5 away games in all competitions.
Yeah, and in their victories they've had in that run as well, the win at West Ham last Monday, the win over Wolverhampton Wanderers, they've not played particularly well in those games as well. So there's things to solve right now for Enzo Maresca. I think that the loss of Nicholas Jackson, first through form, then through fitness, has been significant. Christopher Nkunku has just not done it in the Premier League. I know he came in and got injured, but he's not a central striker. He's not happy playing central striker. He's not, I'm not sure, suited to Premier League football, and I think that's been significant. His lack of confidence up front has been really significant, because when we think back to December, start of December, November, when Chelsea were fantastic, it was almost all built on the brilliant form of Nicholas Jackson. And, you know, he looked a bit like the second coming of Didier Drogba to a point for a brief period of time. Of course, you know, Drogba's gift was to do it for a decade. But losing Jackson has been significant. I think the midfield balance has looked off since Romeo Lavia inevitably got injured again. And he is out until April. Moving forward, Chelsea can't build a midfield around Romeo Lavia. He just is not physically able to play Premier League football. That is it. That is proved. And that's a sad thing, but it's a fact. And the Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo midfield balance doesn't look right. And Reece James, you know, last week on Monday Night Football, he got outpaced by Carlos Soler. And I was just watching it thinking, that's troubling. Reece James is one of the fastest players in English football, or he has been for the last 2 or 3 seasons. Carlos Soler is a stagecoach. And if you're getting outpaced by a stagecoach, something has gone wrong. Whether he can't get to that pace anymore, I don't know. But that's a concern. So little issues all over the field for Chelsea. And, of course, in goal, 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐲 is likely to play in this game on Friday. Is he significantly better than Robert Sanchez? I don't know. So lots to solve for Chelsea. And they are now starting to look like a mishmash of a squad, which is kind of what you expect when you spend that sort of money, but do it a bit inconsistently. So we'll see on Chelsea, but certainly the form is off. In terms of Brighton, great performance in the FA Cup last week, considering before that they'd been beaten by Nottingham Forest. We predicted they would lose to Forest. We had Forest scoring goals. We had Chris Wood scoring. We had all of that. We didn't have 7-0. Like we had a Forest win, we did not have 7-0. So that shocked me. That took me back a bit, what happened last week. So they really needed that in the FA Cup following on. But the issue here for Brighton, as it's been for a long time, is that so many players continue to struggle with fitness. Carlos Baleba a doubt for this one. Yasin Ayari a doubt for this one. Matt Suifa, we've barely seen him all season. So that's 3 of the best central midfielders they've got. And now up front, the balance of 𝐬𝐵 and Danny Welbeck and Karam Mitoma and Minte looks a bit off at the moment. And I think that's the thing that Fabian Hürzeler needs to solve. If it is going to be a 4-2-4, which they've played at points, the midfield can't be Jack Hinshelwood and another. And if they haven't got the players I've mentioned, it has looked a bit off. So going to be really interesting to see how Brighton set up in this game. It's going to be interesting to see how they get the best out of some really good attacking players. But frankly, I don't see much change from the FA Cup game. I think this will be almost a carbon copy of that game. Take the Brighton win at 3.06. Love that as the first tip. They've already won this game. And Chelsea, as you mentioned, away from home have been struggling. So go for that as the top tip. And again, follow the pattern of the game in the FA Cup. Brighton are both teams to score. It happens in the vast majority of Brighton games. The Man United win, the Chelsea win. Look at that at 4.5. Incredible odds for something that's coming so consistently across the season. Take that. If you are looking at Chelsea, the only thing I'm taking right now is anything to do with Cole Palmer. He's involved in everything good about them to score or assist. It's only 1.65, but you'd bundle that into something else and you'll make some money.
Well, Chelsea are the kings of both teams to score, and Brighton is only one step below. Actually, 71% of the games for Brighton, 75 for Chelsea, backing your both teams to score. Everyone agrees, actually, on both teams to score. Leo, Elijah, and Creek is asking you to predict both teams to score. Yeah, your wishes are orders to us, Creek. Let's move to the next game, Leicester City. Arsenal, I'm guessing you are tipping here a huge win for Arsenal, taking in consideration Leicester are back to the bottom three, no option according to the bookies for this game. Imagine, to win at home is 12.5. This is kind of embarrassing, especially because they still have options to stay in the Premier League. Lost to United in the FA Cup, and it's only one win. Remember, in the last 10 against Arsenal, Tom, I guess it was a big blow. The defeat against Newcastle could be.
Yeah, look, I think that Arsenal had lost the Carabao Cup semi-finals in the first leg as opposed to second leg. It wasn't a great performance at St. James's Park, but they were coming from a 2-0 deficit at one of the toughest grounds in the country. And so, what does anyone expect from any team? And the other thing to note now with Arsenal is that Kai Havertz is now out for the rest of this season, injured on the Dubai training camp they've been on. So Havertz has pulled his hamstring. Jesus has done his cruciate. And again, we go back to the January transfer window and we go back to the summer transfer window. Buy a striker. But buy a striker. Get a striker in. Buy a striker. Why aren't you buying a striker? Another window comes. Buy a striker. Another window comes. Buy a striker. Another window comes. Buy a striker. Like, it's so stupid at this point. And we can talk about, like, not being able to get elite strikers, Isak or 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜 or whatever. Fine. Watkins. You can't get these guys. You've got no one. Raheem Sterling might have to be up front. I heard a rumor this morning, and I don't know how true this is, we'll find out at the weekend, that they might be planning on playing Mikel Merino up front because they've got no one else who can play there. It's insane they didn't do it. And you look across the two transfer windows this season, the summer and January, the only attacking player they bought, Arsenal, is Raheem Sterling. It was the biggest issue last season. It's the biggest issue this season, and they haven't solved it. And they've spent money. Like 𝐿𝐴, forgive me, I don't have it now, but he was about 40 million. So they spent money at left back. No, stop. No more transfers till you buy a striker. You are banned because it's going to cost them. It's going to cost them. They aren't going to win the league this year without a striker. I still think they'll win this game, but overall, that's done, Arsenal. That's finished them this season in Champions League and Premier League. But look, they're defensively solid still. They will have enough in. Hopefully, the returning Bukayo Saka in a couple of weeks and Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard to win enough games to finish in the top four to win this particular game. But it's going to cost them in the overall narrative. Can't see him conceding a goal here. Can't see him struggling a great deal here because Leicester are so poor. And it's been, my analysis of them has remained pretty consistent across the season. They don't have good enough players. They don't have a good enough back line. They don't have a strong enough midfield. And as much as it was fun to watch Harry Winks and 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐴 return to Tottenham a couple of weeks ago and get the win there, wins are anomalous as opposed to consistencies. And Jamie Vardy, look, 7 goals this season for a player of 38 years of age. Really, really impressive. But they have relied on him all season. And 5 years ago, probably could have done it. He'd be on 20 this season, but you can't now, and you can't get 90 minutes out of him. And beyond that, there's a real lack of quality in this Leicester squad. So, look, you can't back a Leicester win on their form. You can't back a Leicester clean sheet, considering it's 53 goals conceded. It's 1 win in the last 5. That was the anomalous victory at Spurs. I'll take the Arsenal win at 1.32. Arsenal win without conceding is 2.1. The reason I go with that is because even though Arsenal have conceded a few goals this season, I'm thinking about the victory against Wolverhampton Wanderers. I'm thinking about their performance against Dinamo Zagreb. If they take the lead in this game, it is game over. They will take the lead in this game. I think they'll win a low scoring under 2.5 without conceding. And of course, 𝐿𝐵Riel to score from a corner. Stick with it.
Well, Arsenal to win 2-0, for instance, for Prasodas, or the corner Asian handicap -4 for 𝐿𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐺. Also following your ideas. Well, some others are seeing Arsenal scoring more goals. Next game is Aston Villa, Ipswich Town. Also low odds to back Aston Villa, but actually 1.4. If you handicap this, is not that bad. Ipswich, I guess the defeat against Southampton was lethal. 4 consecutive Premier League defeats. Still close to Wolverhampton, but if you lose at home against Southampton, I think you should go down. And Aston Villa, Tom, must win, 6 points away from the Champions League spots.
Yes, and the great news for Villa is they weren't playing in this round of the Champions League, and so they haven't got to continue to struggle after playing in Europe in the Premier League. A week off without a game, what a treat for Aston Villa, and they've been able to work on this front line. There was a moment during the Spurs game, and I don't know if you felt it too, or people watching felt it. They were coming forward, and they had Marcus Rashford, Morgan Rogers, and Marco Asensio, and you were a bit like, what's happening here? What am I watching? This could be great. Look, Marco Asensio is, I think, 30 this season, and so, just not the player maybe he was 4 or 5 years ago. I get it. Wow. Feels like he should be 17 forever, right? But I think he's 30 this year. Feels weird. But like, there is something that you can get from him across the next 20 games. You add that to Marcus Rashford, if you can get him firing. Morgan Rogers, I love him. Ollie Watkins has been unfit. I think he's back for this one. They could do something going forward, Villa. They've been struggling to do this season and change it up. And that's been their biggest issue this campaign. When someone hasn't quite been firing, apart from bringing on John Duran, there's been no great rotation that Unai Emery's been able to do. He now can. The only concern is defensively. 𝐿𝐵𝐴 𝐿𝐴 is missing. Pau Torres, injured too much now, Pau Torres. I think they might need to think about that moving forward because he's missed so much football this season. And of course, Tyrone Mings, relying on him as well is a problem. So defensively, I'd have some concerns, but offensively, they could be really, really good the rest of the season and this game. For Ipswich Town, they got a really morale-boosting victory, I'd put it, against Coventry City in the FA Cup last weekend, but in the Premier League, to lose against Southampton, you mentioned it in your question to me there. I went for Ipswich win at home because I thought they can't afford to lose this. Like, you can't lose this game against the worst team in the country. And they contrived to do so. 𝐼𝐻𝐻, the goalkeeper, is so bad. Like, he's so bad. He couldn't catch a cold on a bus. Like, he truly is an awful goalkeeper. Balls just fly past him. He can't catch. He can't save. Going into last weekend, I think the stats were he'd made 6 errors leading to goals this season. I'd make both goals in the last game. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 errors as well. They don't do that statistically, but that's how bad he was. Beyond Liam Delap, there's just no positives now. There really are no positives about this Ipswich season. And the only positive is Delap, and he'll be sold in the summer because they're going to fly down. So in this game, take the Villa win first and foremost at 1.44. On top of that, I would look at Villa scoring lots and lots of goals here. At least 2 goals for Aston Villa. Look at the handicap market at -2.5. -3.5 brings you in some really, really good money. I'd look at least 2-0, and I'd couple that with Marcus Rashford. I just have a sense of this here, that it's going to go really well for Marcus Rashford at Aston Villa. You have Rashford to score and Villa to win. Really good money to be made, but handicap market, goals, at least 2, maybe 3. I think this could be a rout for Aston Villa.
Well, Villa to score, to win, and both things to score is Joseph's tips, for instance, or Leo as well going for this. Konstantinos, on the other hand, Ipswich plus 2.5. Handicap, well, they are the underdogs, so the bookies expect Ipswich to lose. Next game, interesting odds here, interesting game here. Fulham, Nottingham Forest, because the bookies place Fulham as favorites 2.2 to win. Nottingham Forest 3.5, and this is a huge surprise in my opinion because Forest are third and they just thrashed Brighton 7-0. Remember, with Wood scoring a hat-trick, and Fulham no wins in the last 5 home games, so I'm kind of surprised, Tom, about these odds.
You're right to be surprised. Lump on Forest right now, because surely someone is going to catch this before the weekend. I'm assuming the bookies are half asleep and not paying attention to this game. And so this is the moment to put some money on Nottingham Forest. That will not be 3.5 by the time we get to the weekend. And you mentioned it there. The Fulham home form has not been great. It's 5 draws across their 12 home games this season. Just 4 victories. That's the same as Everton and West Ham and Tottenham. Would we say those clubs have had good seasons? I don't think we would. And so if you're on the same home record as those teams, I think there's something questionable going on there. I think that Fulham are a good team, and they've got some incredible away wins in recent weeks at Leicester, at Newcastle. They beat Wigan away in the FA Cup, but at home, that is where the struggles have been. And I think it'll continue here. Look, Raul Jimenez having a great season. 𝐿𝐿𝐴 is having an all-timer season for his career. Anthony Robinson gets forward a lot, like him a lot. The midfield balances look good. There's loads of positives about Fulham. But I do think that at home, they have struggled to break down low-block teams. And look, what are Nottingham Forest? They are the quintessential low-block team. They are going to be midway inside their own half. They're going to sit in. They're going to try and spring the counter. And if Fulham try and play around them, Forest will pick them off. That'll be the plan. And so I can't quite understand why Forest aren't the favourites, but we are where we are. In terms of form, look, the Bournemouth game potentially could be influencing a few people. But the first goal is so crucial in Nottingham Forest games. They get it more often than not. If they get the first goal, they very rarely lose. And they certainly have done incredibly well this season to keep getting that first goal. But against Bournemouth, they didn't. And then Bournemouth started to knock it about them. Beyond that, didn't happen against Brighton, didn't happen against Southampton, didn't happen against Liverpool, and they get results in all of those games. The only doubt is Callum Hudson-Odoi, but they have the cover in Gibbs White and Elanga and all these guys that are having great seasons. And 𝐿𝐿𝐴, you mentioned hat-trick in the last game. I think he's got 17 goals this season, 𝐿𝐿𝐴, a mind-blowing number for a striker who he thought was over the hill. So go Forest win, and Wood to score. If you do fancy Fulham, I mentioned it already, 5 draws at home this season. I wouldn't go Fulham win. I would look at the draw, look at 1-1, look at both teams scoring. If you fancy Fulham, that's the path I would go down. But for me, Forest at 3.5 is crazy. Take it.
It's really good. Even if you go for the double chance for Nottingham Forest, is great because it's a great risk of a draw. Is 1.7 double chance for Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Asian handicap minus 0.25, I guess is this. Yeah, it's a good idea, of course, to handicap Nottingham Forest, or Nottingham Forest draw no bet is another good option for this game. Of course, we don't underestimate the bookies. Next game, Man City, Newcastle, really interesting game, both fighting for the Champions League spot. Probably even the 5th spot will go to the Champions League next season. But we have Man City in big crisis, even more after losing to Real Madrid. Was 2-3 in the last minutes, and it's bad that I say that, but they deserve to lose by a bigger margin. They conceded so many chances. They were very lucky that Mbappe or Bellingham missed 2, 3, 4 chances in front of the goalkeeper, or even struggled to beat Leyton Orient in the cup. And we saw, for instance, Kevin De Bruyne absolutely out of form. We saw Grealish injured. The defense is a nightmare, so it's a good opportunity for Newcastle to get points from the Etihad, with Man City, I guess, also thinking at the Bernabeu, Tom.
Terrific chance for Newcastle United here. I mean, look, Man City, you summed it up quite nicely there. The big players, the star players beyond Erling Haaland aren't performing, be it they're on the downslope like Kevin De Bruyne, or they're just so painfully out of form it's hard to watch like Jack Grealish. Or maybe there are players that just aren't big enough for the kind of games that City are in. I think about Savinho, he's a good player, but no real business being in a game for Man City against Real Madrid in the Champions League. He looks like he's not quite ready for that yet. And defensively, we talk about it a lot, but losing Rodri and having no kind of replacement for him across the last few months has cost them. And they've tried lots of combinations now. Kovacic and Lewis and Gonzalez, will he play in this game? We'll find out. But they've looked off. They haven't had that cover for the defenders to become midfielders, and there's gaps in behind, and they all look totally exposed. And also, Matheus Nunes at fullback. Pep, come on now. Let's stop doing this, okay? He's not a fullback. You got mullered at Leyton Orient, and you're continuing to do it. It doesn't make sense to me. And in this game, he's going to be up against Anthony Gordon, or if they switch Jacob Murphy, or if Harvey Barnes is fit, I mean, that's going to be a nightmare for Man City. So I wouldn't do that. At least they have Erling Haaland scoring, right? I mean, it's 19 goals in the Premier League this season. Scored in the Champions League, a couple of goals against Real Madrid. We can criticize Erling Haaland as much as we want, and there are maybe elements of his build-up play that continue to need improvement, even though there's been some good stuff recently. The turn around the corner to Foden against Chelsea was very impressive, but he scores goals consistently, and he's got 19 goals. Without Erling Haaland, Man City would really be in trouble this season. They'd be lower mid-table because the rest of them have struggled so much, including the goalkeeper, by the way. For a second, I thought it was 𝗀𝗏 at Ipswich who was in goal against Real Madrid. Like, what was
he doing in the second goal? Oh, my God.
What's he doing for any of the goals?
Great assist with the chest. Great assist.
All the goals, Edu, it's just so bad. But then Ortega was awful against Arsenal. Like that 𝐬𝐿𝐴 shot was straight at him. So I don't know. You can't blame Pep for that. Both goalkeepers are just so bad at the moment, and they're right off form. So look, loads of issues with Man City. With Newcastle, gotta fancy them here. They've had a couple of moments where they have let us down. Thinking about the Fulham game and the Bournemouth game, where at home, at points when it hasn't turned their way, they've gone on to lose. But if you look at the Southampton victory, the Carabao Cup against Arsenal, the win against Birmingham in the FA Cup, I'm sure many people didn't watch that game, but it was brilliant, and it was tough, and it was hard, and it was gritty. I know it was against a League One side, but they fought their way out of it. There is something about Newcastle. The defence is back to its proper balance of Fabian Schär and Sven Botman. Hopefully, Botman will be fit for this one. I know there's some doubts about him. The midfield balance looks great, even with Joe Linton out. They've still got a good trio of players there they can play, with Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali in terrific form. And up front, I've mentioned the strikers, but not 𝐸𝐸 yet. 17 Premier League goals this season is outstanding. 3.8, can't believe it. Take it, snap your hand off. Newcastle to win at 3.8. I'd absolutely fancy that, considering that City have lost 2 of their last 3, quite heavily to Real Madrid and Arsenal in terms of goals conceded, 8 in those 2 games. Also, let Leyton Orient score against them. 𝐸𝐸 to score and Newcastle to win, like that as well. And when you consider the time off the 2 teams have had, the lack of rotation that City are going to be able to do, I really fancy Newcastle here. Take the draw as well. There's money to be made. Nothing really worth betting on with Man City, frankly. If you want them to win, it's Haaland and City. But at 3.8 or 4.3 the draw, you've got to take a punt on Newcastle here. If they're ever going to win a game like this, this is the scenario.
And what the hell was doing also Rico Lewis in the third goal? Instead of attacking the ball, he was going backwards. And Guardiola looks clueless for the first time in his career. He looks absolutely lost. So everyone is going, not everyone, but a lot of people, of course, taking Newcastle to win or Newcastle double chance, except Man Spaghetti, trusting Man City. Man City will win 3-1. Well, this is a very tough game, 5th against the 6th, just before visiting the Bernabeu. Let's go to the south. Southampton, Bournemouth, of course, Iraola's men, really favorites. They are still alive in the FA Cup, beating Everton. The last game, remember, they lost to Liverpool 2-0, but it's impossible not to back them. 1.6, even if the odds are kind of low, I guess it's okay to take them, Tom.
Yeah, look, you can't bet on Southampton, right? In the end, it's a waste of time. I wouldn't take Southampton at double the money here. I mean, it's 1 home win all season. It's 8 goals scored. They're bottom of the league. And yes, they won against Ipswich. And that was a good moment of revenge for Southampton. They probably should have beaten Ipswich at home earlier in the season. There was that late Sam Morsey goal that really set the tone for constant disappointment that Southampton have had. So, but there's been improvements under 𝗀𝐸𝐸. They played well. They played well at Old Trafford. They played well against Newcastle. They've won against Ipswich. Maybe if 𝗀𝐸𝐸 had come in earlier in the season, they might have stood a chance. I think probably not with the lack of quality in the squad, but you never know. But, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts and all that sort of stuff. So, look, I think they've still got a championship squad. They're going to go down. It's good to see Paul 𝗀𝐸𝐸 score last week, 6'7", 2 meters tall. He's a bit of a joke character, but you stop people laughing at you and criticizing you in football by scoring goals and doing your job, and he's doing exactly that. And there's been some good performances from people like Joe Aribo and 1 or 2 others. So, look, more respectable now, Southampton. If this game was 4 months ago, I'd probably say 6-0. I'm still going to say Bournemouth win, but it won't be as impressive. But Bournemouth's run, incredibly impressive. I mean, they played well against Liverpool. I think that penalty was a bit dubious. I know the football world doesn't quite believe it, but I think it was. That changed the game, really. 0-0 at that point. thrashing Nottingham Forest, thrashing Newcastle United, good draw at Chelsea, victory in the cup at Everton, you've mentioned. In the form of 𝐬𝐿 and 𝐶𝐿aIvert, they probably have the two most informed players in the league right now, scoring goals, creating chances, wreaking havoc. People like Tavernier are coming back. The form of Tyler Adams returning to fitness, great balance about them. And of course, we've mentioned the centre halves as well. It's particularly Howson at centre half has been absolutely fantastic. Kepa's making great saves. 𝐿𝐭𝐿 has been brilliant. Loads of players in good form. You know how they play. You've got to outwork them. You've got to outfight them. And you've got to stop these buzzing attackers from getting in the gaps in your defence. Don't think Southampton will do that. So take the Bournemouth win at a shockingly low 1.6. If you want to make some money here, you've got to bet on individual players. Those two players are 𝐬𝐿 and 𝐶𝐿aIvert. 𝐬𝐿 scores and Bournemouth win, 3.5. Really, really like that. Think about his goals in recent weeks. The Chelsea goal, phenomenal. And Patrick 𝐶𝐿aIvert, I did it. Justin 𝐶𝐿aIvert scoring and Bournemouth win at 2.63. He's in terrific form. I think 11 goals in the Premier League this season. He's the penalty taker as well. So that is quite nice at 2.63.
11 goals and 3 assists for Patrick 𝐶𝐿aIvert's son. Bournemouth Asian handicap -1 for Messi, both teams to score for Joseph. Next game, West Ham Brentford. Well, Tom, the results have not improved under Graham Potter. Lost to Chelsea, only one win against Fulham, and Brentford comfortable mid-table but getting bad results. Actually, these two teams are not in great form and are kind of comfortable in the middle of the table.
Yeah, maybe the two worst teams in the league right now, West Ham and Brentford. Two teams you really don't want to bet on with the form they've been in. But look, I will say for West Ham, 𝐿𝐿opetegui left an unbelievable mess at West Ham, an incredible mess. And Graham Potter turns up and Fulkrug's injured, Antonio's injured, Somerville's injured, and suddenly he's lost his attack. And then he's playing Paqueta up front, who did well at Villa, then he got injured. And you're a bit like, oh, okay, what do I do now then? And they should have got something against Chelsea. 𝐿𝐴𝐿aBowen coming back made a big difference to them. I think West Ham will get 3 or 4 wins for the rest of this season and get to around 40 points. It's been a washout campaign for them. But that happens when you hire a boob as your manager, frankly. I think there are improvements under Graham Potter, but I think it'll be slow and steady. And again, he's having to play Aaron Cresswell and Vladimir Coufal in a back three with Max Kilman. The squad looks an unbelievable mess, West Ham. We didn't see that coming, but it has been. We've barely seen Jean-Claude Todibo at centre-half all season. He's back in training this week, we hear. And Mavropanos, frankly, I'd rather play with 10 than bring him back in. So we'll see what they do. But it's a big game for West Ham because, look, 27 points, 10 points clear. Are they going to be fine? Yeah, I'd feel really confident in that. But they've got to get the points. They've got home games against the likes of Brentford and Leicester and Southampton to come. Win those 3 games, you get the points required. You're safe, you're fine, you're done. But they've got to win some games now. You know, there's been some improvements under Graham Potter. It's games like this. If they come away like the Palace game, having not had a shot and been really bad, we might have to put West Ham back in that conversation, depending on other results as well. So, huge game for West Ham. I'm led to believe that it will be 𝐿𝐴𝐿aBowen, it will be Lucas Paqueta, it will be Mohamed Kudus, who's been anonymous and irrelevant this season. One of the biggest disappointments of the campaign, frankly. Mohamed Kudus done nothing for months on end. And James Ward-Prowse coming back in. You know, they started Andy Irving at Chelsea, for goodness sake. So I think West Ham will go. This will be the first real 2 weeks of Graham Potter training. Let's see what he can actually do. Test, and it's a game they frankly must win. Only 4 home wins all season, West Ham, so not great at all. In terms of Brentford, look, I think that their first half of the season, home form was tremendous, but across the entire season, their away form has been atrocious. They did win at Crystal Palace last time out in terms of away games. They have won at Southampton away from home this season, but I think maybe just running out of steam a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how they cope over the next few games, considering they're like a win away from basically safety and they can cruise to the end of the campaign. Bryan Mbeumo on 14 goals this season is obviously a massive danger man, as is 𝐿𝐴𝐿aBowen, but I don't expect much from this game. So I am going to plump for West Ham at 2.47, only because I think West Ham really, really need this victory, and they've had a nice build-up with Graham Potter. If they can't win this, the season goes into serious, serious doubt. I think it's going to be a very, very narrow game. I don't see over 3.5 goals, so look at the under market. West Ham to win on a group bet, 1-0, 2-0, or 2-1, comes in at 4. Really like that. If you're looking at goal scorers, for West Ham, top scorer 𝐿𝐴𝐿aBowen with 6 goals. Him to score and West Ham win, 4.5. That seemed quite high. If you fancy Brentford, double it with Mbeumo to score and that's how you make your money. Pick those 2 players, and then you win.
Well, West Ham to win, draw no bet is 1.8. For instance, if you want to take the insurance of draw, West Ham to win for Jess High M. Next game, Crystal Palace, Everton. Crystal Palace alive in the FA Cup after another win. It's kind of normal for them, winning at Old Trafford. I think we mentioned it in our previous video that you should back them. Is 5 wins in the last 6 games. Everton also really in form in the Premier League, and I don't know if they are going to be tired after the exigent, tough, tense derby of Merseyside.
Oh, they will be. What a game it was on Wednesday night. Incredible effort. Last ever goal in a Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. The latest ever goal in a Merseyside derby at Goodison Park, scored by James 𝗏𝗏𝗀. Terrific finish and a great performance. But I think there will be tired legs. Definitely tired legs from that exertion. Look, I think the 10 points from 12 available for David Moyes is incredible, right? No one saw that turnaround coming, scoring goals, creating chances. They've lost Calvert-Lewin, and Beto has started scoring. They lost McNeil, and Zai came in and has given some exuberance to the midfield that maybe he wasn't doing enough of before McNeil's injury. You've got Jake O'Brien playing at fullback, looking fantastic. Branthwaite back in the team and fit for a period of time. Loads of positives around Everton. And if they didn't have the game on Wednesday before the game on Saturday, I might fancy them here. But I think there's not a deep squad to rotate. Plus, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗀 got sent off post-match, so he's going to be missing in this one as well. I think going to be down to the bare bones, and they're going to struggle here. My only concern is that Crystal Palace, for all their recent good form, up to 30 points now, 4 away from safety, they're going to make it, is that they've only won 2 home games this season. I couldn't quite believe that. I had to double-check it this morning. Incredibly low amount of home victories. I mean, why people are still turning up at Selhurst to watch them, I don't know. They've got to win this particular game. Jean-Philippe Mateta, 10 goals this season, in really good form. 𝗵𝗫 fit and looking creative. Lots to like about Crystal Palace right now, but they've got to start delivering in home games. Well, I said that when they took on Brentford a couple of weeks ago and found a way to lose that. So, frankly, screams draw to me at 3.55. I would take that. Screams 0-0 or 1-1 with very, very few chances. If you are going to go for a winner, you just go for Palace. You take Mateta to score and Palace to win. Come in plenty of times in recent weeks, including at Old Trafford and at West Ham. So I expect that to be around, what have we got, 3.5 for that. But low scoring, more than likely a draw.
It's a tough to watch late kickoff on Saturday. Crystal Palace double chance and goals under 2.5 goals. Of course, go for the under. We have Man Spaghetti furious with Michael Oliver. So let's talk about the Liverpool playing on Sunday at home against Wolves. So, of course, super favorites. They should win 1.2 after that draw that we were mentioning in the derby after the shocking defeat against Plymouth in the FA Cup. And Wolves outside the relegation zone. We were also mentioning in this show the difficult schedule they had. But the win against Aston Villa made them leave the bottom 3, Tom.
Yes, it did. And it wasn't a win I saw coming. We thought Villa might struggle because it's post-Champions League, but I continue to doubt Wolverhampton Wanderers. I think they're going to make it above Ipswich and Leicester, but not a great team. Look, with Liverpool, I worked on the game last night, and they didn't play particularly well in terms of the overall piece. I think that's been a narrative of Liverpool this season, but they are very tough to beat, tough to score against. And it took a very late, brilliant goal for them to lose the game against Everton last night, a game where Everton were probably the best team across it. But Van Dijk and 𝐿𝐿𝐼 very strong. I think Conor Bradley struggled, so I'd imagine Alexander Arnold will come back in here. And midfield, it was a poor game for Ryan Gravenberch, I thought, on Wednesday. One of the only times this season where I think he hasn't been the best player on the field for Liverpool. So that was a surprise. Maybe he needs some rotation. But then rotation's been an issue for Liverpool. You know, we talk a lot about give this player a rest, give that player a rest. There was a few players I thought that were out of rhythm last night against Everton, including Luis Diaz and Cody Gakpo, and even Mo Salah, who doesn't really do much apart from key moments these days for Liverpool. Of course, he assisted and scored in the game on Wednesday. But they've taken him out. Is he lacking a bit of rhythm now because he's not playing every minute of every game or starting every game? We're going to find out here because they've had their rest now and the rest is over. It's now time to play every minute of every game and get the job done in the Premier League and the Champions League over the next few weeks. And in terms of Wolves, still lots of players injured. I think they're really going to struggle here, frankly. I know they've won the last couple of games without conceding, but did lose to Arsenal, 3 against Chelsea, 3 against Newcastle. I can see this being a near carbon copy of the Newcastle loss a couple of weeks ago. There are certain games against certain opponents the Wolves are just not going to be able to stand up to, and I think this is one of them. Look at a big Liverpool win here. Look at the Tottenham game. Look at maybe the other big wins they've had at home this season. I think they will take their frustrations of Everton out on Wolverhampton Wanderers here. Liverpool win at 1.22. That's your first bet. Then look at the goals market. -3 is 4.33. -2, we mentioned there as well. Look at the handicaps. Go through them and see what you fancy. -2 is 1.95. That's conservative. I think at least 3-0, 4-0. And look at Salah's numbers as well. 22 scored, 14 assists. Look at Salah to score and Liverpool to win. Doesn't make you much money. But look at the Salah to score multiple goals market. Salah scores twice and Liverpool win. That doubles your money.
Liverpool will score over 3 goals. Liverpool to win. Salah to score. Well, of course, Liverpool super favorites. And the last game is an impossible game to bet, I think. Tottenham, Man United. We can see here the odds, really high odds for all the outcomes because it's playing Russian roulette with these two teams. Impossible to trust. Ante Postecoglou is still in charge, I believe, but very close to be sacked. The Caps weren't good for Tottenham, out in the FA Cup against Aston Villa, out in the League Cup. In Premier League, it's only 1 win in the last 8. And for Man United, well, good news is that they are alive in the FA Cup, I guess, Tom.
Yeah, look, there are these two in that group of teams now with Everton and West Ham and Crystal Palace. They're not going to go down. The bottom clubs aren't going to catch them. They'll find a way to get 2 or 3 more wins, but dismal season for both, really, in the league. Look, with Tottenham, it's funny, the Brentford victory, which I didn't see coming, was the antithesis of a Postecoglou performance. They dug in, they sort of low blocked to a degree, they played basic, they worked the channels, they scored ugly goals, and they found a way to win. That's what's been required for months and months and months, and Spurs have not been able to deliver it. Didn't think much of Kevin Danso on debut at centre-half against Villa, but we'll see how that sort of develops. It's harsh to judge him on one game. Still no 𝗛𝗲𝗃. He came back for a bit, but they're really understandably treating him cautiously because it's all about the Europa League for Tottenham. So can't have 𝗛𝗃𝗃 breaking down again. There's still no Romero for this game. Everyone should be back, weirdly, in like 2 weeks. So, I could go through the list again of injured players, but everyone of real significance being Udogie, Romero, Maddison and 𝗛𝗃𝗃 should all be available in a couple of weeks' time. And when that happens, we see a different Tottenham. We see what Postecoglou wanted if those guys can stay fit. But I don't think fit for this particular game. And they really have struggled in certain games against ugly teams in recent weeks. The Leicester and Aston Villa performances, maybe most notable. They're in the game, but it can swing away from them, from the stroke of genius from a team who otherwise have played quite ugly. And that's kind of Man United right now. Like, they've had some good moments from people like Diallo and Bruno Fernandes in recent weeks, but it's so awful to watch. They're slow, they're laborious, they're uninspiring. We know Amorim is going to set up in his preferred style, even though it doesn't suit these players, but that seems to be the deal with the devil that they have made, and it leads to stodgy, tough and slow performances that hopefully, for United's sake, will change when the personnel changes. But they've got some good results. I think it's 4 wins in 5. Only the Palace result in all competitions a defeat. Look, I think it's going to be a tough watch, this. Let's make no mistake about it. I don't think it's going to be a thriller. I'd certainly look at the draw market here at 3.9. I like that. But I do think defensively, both teams are weak, so both teams will score. So in terms of entertainment, I think it'll be low in terms of quality, but I think there will be goals at both ends. And we see that in 2-1 victories, 2-1 defeats, 4-0, 2-0. There's been lots of goals in recent games for both teams. So take the Man U win at 2.8. I can't back Tottenham right now on the form they have been on. Draw, I like that at 3.9. Both teams to score on its own is 1.36. Double that with your favourite scoreline, you'll make some money. The first real line for anyone to make any money is Man U and over 2.5 goals in this match. Feel like it's going to be 2-1 to Man United, frankly. Make that over 2.5 and Man U win, it's 3.5. But I think both teams score and then pick your winner. For me, United.
Screams both teams to score. Sushan is telling us actually Man United is the 3rd worst team in both teams to score. Only 42% of their games. These stats are in Oddspedia. By the way, well, this is it, actually. Tom, we are done. Almost.
Okay.
Just,
Do you want a hug? You all right?
yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Just surviving. Just let me tell you that we have our tipster competitions, of course, going on, where you can win some cash prizes with Oddspedia, including the Premier League one. And then you can also join or participate in custom competitions like Rivals, and you can challenge your friends or join one that was already created. Well, Tom, safe bet?
Liverpool to win. There's a few safe bets this week, but Liverpool at home against Wolverhampton Wanderers following the Merseyside derby in midweek, I think is as safe as it's going to get. So at 1.22, great. Throw it in.
And the ACCA?
I've gone for a double this week because there's lots of favourites that are coming on quite low odds. So I'm getting to like 4 games and finding less than 2-1. I found you a double. Brighton to win against Chelsea to replicate what they did against Chelsea in the FA Cup last weekend. And West Ham to win against Brentford. Lots of risk in this because, you know, West Ham only got 4 wins all season. But I think West Ham have to win this game. It's a really nice home game for West Ham. If they can win a game of association football, it's going to be this. 2 games at 6.83. Really, really high. That's worth a punt. I'm taking that.
A bit risky, indeed. Well, Tom, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye.